Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet in its new home. And of course, everything's kind of wigged out and crazy in here. But anyway, it's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we talk about what is going on in the world. On the world stage, it's a little bit crazy. In my personal life, of course, as you can see, the environment is a new environment for me and also a little crazy because, like, I couldn't even find uh, my eye drops this morning. I mean, everything is just kind of everywhere. I'm not sure that I have the right lighting. I'm not sure that I have the right look. But you know what? I'm just going to go with the flow and work with what I got today. I was able to at least get my office area sort of organized. And we really do have quite a bit to talk about this morning as we're sitting most activated and the most difficult moons of the year. And given, the atmosphere that we've been living in over the weekend, and I'm guessing it started late last week, um, this moon is offering up an opportunity for hope and for moving forward with some better opportunities or better choices, but we have to choose the choices, right? So it'll be interesting to see how the moon impacts us all. But we also, because I wasn't on air on Friday, I wasn't able to tell you about some of the weekend aspects. So I want to backtrack just a bit to start out the show this morning. And then I'll move forward into things that are happening today and through Wednesday. Now, on Wednesday, I will also be broadcasting with Tam, as it will be our What's Coming in July show, as July is just around the corner, which is incredible, isn't it? How fast the time has gone. And we'll be taking a look at what some of the bigger summer things have in store for us. So today I only really need to take us into the mid of the week, which of course the new moon is on the 25th. So we have that to talk about as well. So let's break down what is going on. So as we entered into Sunday, we had Mars in Virgo in a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer. Now, sextiles are positive, right? They are ways in which the planets work together really well, sort of in a flow or a harmonizing of the energies. Um, and a sextile, from Aries, or excuse me, from Virgo to Cancer. So we have two signs that are really known for protection, for getting down to the details of things, for, seeing things through from the beginning to the end. And we have Mars as one of the planets, so it's an activation. And then we have action through precision and through practical steps, right? Doing the strategy type of thing here. And it is also a service minded sign. So we have motivations that are maybe from the need or desire to help or serve. And as well, we also might have the fix it sort of energy going on and the need to organize and purify and what have you. So that's the Mars part of that. And this is still activated. Mars and Jupiter are going to be like this for another few days. Now, Jupiter in Cancer, of course, we've talked a lot about because it's all about the emotional expansion and the intuition based wisdom that we are learning about growing through from now until next June. So we have a longer term, transit going on here. It's also about belonging and family and caretaking and nurturing and all those, growth oriented things, how we grow from one level to the next level. And sensitivity and empathy and all of that, compassion, tolerance, acceptance are all a part of that. Homeland is another theme. And it's an interesting thing to watch the world events going on and how um, each country, I guess you will, or nation is becoming very homeland oriented, right? Taking care of the business for their own purposes, whatever that might be. Now, there's also the support of sextile, which we just talked about. So we have This opportunity to take focused action and turn it into tangible blessings for others. And that is inspiring and it is also emotional and sensitive. So we have this theme of, wanting to optimize family and wanting to optimize how it is that we come together and help one another. And I got to tell you, I don't know, my daughters aren't listening because I can see her walking across the yard out there. My other daughter's at work. But these 2 girls, oh my god, if I did not have them this weekend, I think I would have gone insane. Family, right? They came together and they helped us in, gosh, the most profound ways, right? Moving is difficult on a good day, when you're in your 30s and 40s. Moving is one thing, but when you're up in your 60s and you're trying to move, it becomes very overwhelming. You just don't have the same amount of strength and the same amount of stamina, and they jumped in and helped. This is family, right? This is Jupiter in Cancer, and this is also this sextile, right, where everything comes together with a plan and can be worked on. It is also a good day to declutter, or a good time to declutter, to put things, out that you need, and to put things away that you don't, right, or let them go. Now, the other transit or aspect that was happening yesterday is the sun in Cancer in a square to Saturn and Neptune in Aries, although the actual Neptune squares today. But yesterday, and that's only because they're looking, when they give us this information, right, on an ephemeris, it's the exact moment that these things come together, right? Not, they don't give us the, oh, it's starting today and or tomorrow or a week ago and going to last for another week. They don't give us that. They give us the exact. So we've had this in activation, and this is where we're pitting. Sun in Cancer, very, again, emotional and family oriented. And it really points to our emotional needs. And we're pitting our emotional needs against Saturn and Aries, which is personal responsibility. So we're taking this look at how is it that we are making ourselves, getting our needs met while also simultaneously helping others. So the sun in Cancer is shining this big light on emotions and home and family, sensitivity, security, those kinds of things as well. But Saturn in Aries is focusing on discipline and especially around identity and how we align ourselves. Um, Also, courage and leadership, it is involved in this. And it is one of these times where Saturn says, step up and own it. Own your own authenticity, your authentic self, and own the things that you have created in your life, whether they be awesome or not, right? It doesn't really matter in the eyes of Saturn, as Saturn just wants that personal responsibility taken care of. Now, there's a square going on here, and the squares are a little bit tension filled, and we not a little bit, they're a lot tension filled. They force us to do something, right? To move forward, to be able to take the next steps, to evolve, right? We would not evolve without the squares, right? So we have to have the squares. And with the square, we get a turning point, a potential challenge that pushes us toward growth, but we have to make the change. We have to go through the turning point. And the potential themes then for all of us to think about today, or even into this week as we move into the new moon later this week, is about where it is we feel emotionally blocked and or burdened by responsibility, and how are we faring with that? Is it a rightful responsibility? Because there's always that question, is this mine, right? Is this mine to deal with, or is this something I took on from someone else, maybe because I wanted to be their caregiver, or be caring, um, be emotionally there for people, for that person, but is it really your responsibility? Then we also have the inner child thing. Cancer, one of the things I sometimes gloss over with Cancer is the very base inner child, and how that inner child was cared for in their early life. Is we learn, a lot of habits about security and safety and survival, basic survival when we are, from birth to 7 years old, especially. But even, later in our childhood, we learn coping mechanisms and we learn ways in which you know, we can we can survive our childhood. And of course, the adults around us help us either feel secure and safe or not, right? And then, of course, there's the traumas and the dramas and things that happen in all of our lives. And so, as adults now, we get to deal with a sun in Cancer or any Jupiter in Cancer. Um, we get to deal with some of the fallout of the habits and routines that we've adopted as survival mechanisms from our childhood, right? Sometimes they're so unconscious that you don't even realize what the decisions are that you're making and where it is that that information's coming from. Like where am I making that decision to do this or to go there or to not do this? So right now, then we have this, tender opportunity to look at the inner child and how it's also clashing maybe with the adult or adult expectations, the things that we expect of ourselves, of others, of the world, right? And then that means that maybe we have this need right now to parent ourselves, right? To really take charge of our own emotional boundaries, our own emotions, and how it is that we show up for ourselves or for others. And this aspect can feel kind of heavy, burdensome, almost sobering, right? As we take a good hard look at ourselves and the things that we have created. But it's also a call to emotional maturity. All of this coming year, from June until June, that is going to be a big theme, emotional maturity. And we, see that in the outer world. You know, we see it in our personal lives, we see it in our communities, right? Where we are having to go through those baby steps of taking on emotional maturity. Now, the sun and earth, which I'm not going to talk too much about right now, just because I have a lot more to say about other things going on today or this week. But the sun is in the gate 15 and the earth is in the gate 5, 10, excuse me, 15 and 10 through the 25th, so through the new moon. These are the gates of love. The 15 is the love of the human condition or having compassion, empathy, and the gate 10 is the gate of self love. And it's interesting because these are gates that we came through the summer solstice with, right? The gates of love are always at the solstices and the equinoxes. And it reminds us that everything about life here on earth was meant to revolve around love, right? Love energy. The other two gates are the love of spirit, the love of the physical body, the love of self is one that the earth is in, and then the love of our fellow humans, right? Our compassionate hearts. And this is then the tension that we might feel right now between the struggle that we have with empathetic care on one hand and staying true to our own spiritual integrity, our own life missions on the other. So, how do we balance these things, right? That's a part of this particular transit. And it is just for another couple of days. And if I had been with you Friday, I would have been able to just say, remember, we're focusing on love as we move through these gates. So, before I go on to what's happening today, let me just say good morning to everybody who's popping in. Good morning, Amanda J. It's great to see you out there. Teddy, good morning. We're having technical issues, he says. Oh, hello, Binksy. Joan Durchie, good morning to you. J-Lo, good morning. Christine, she says, hi, glad I checked to see if you were on. I'm sorry, I was so tired yesterday, Christine. There's nothing more I could do. I just couldn't. I couldn't even think. I couldn't even find my hairbrush. I found my hairbrush this morning, thankfully, so you don't see me all frizzed out. Jo Terry, good morning. So blessed for our beautiful family indeed. Thanks to, Chris and Aaron and Heather and Jennifer and Chase and Wesley and Tana and her dad Lee and oh my gosh, on and on, right? On and on. Teddy, Okay, I don't know what's going on with the internet, but I was having a little trouble this morning myself. And Patty, thank you. And Jacqueline Tyler, happy to see you too. And Kiki, good morning. Gracious greetings. I love that. So, let's go to what is happening today. So as we sit here, the Sun in Cancer is now squaring Jupiter or squaring Neptune in Aries, right? Saturn and Aries are only a degree apart, or Saturn and Neptune in Aries are only a degree apart. So, if the Sun is squaring Saturn, then he's going to be squaring Neptune next, and that's what's happening today. And this is where we have this emerging emotional need. Like I think we're really recognizing what it takes to really make us feel good. Like I'm noticing for myself, right? I've got this chaos all around me and it really affects me, right? I'm someone that likes to have everything pretty much in working order. Well, if I could show you over here, this is my kitchen. And this is kind of embarrassing, but look at my kitchen. It is a disaster in the making, right? And I can't even cook at this point because there's so much stuff sitting on my stovetop. So the emotional need here is to get organized. Mars and Virgo, that's kind of fun. And to be able to notice what it is that you all need to feel good, right? To feel, secure and safe and happy, right? There are certain things, right, that we need. And then that pits us against Neptune in Aries, which is about this unformed, perhaps spiritual direction, like where are we headed spiritually? And it doesn't help right now that the outer world seems so chaotic. Well, doesn't seem, it is. Right? It's chaotic out there. We don't know if, from one day to another, who's going to attack who's going to bomb who. Are we going to end up with some kind of nuclear conflagration? All of these things set us off our game, right? Even if it's in the background, right? Somehow it manages to infiltrate our consciousness. And then you put this in a week where there's empathy and all of this that's very heightened. And we're feeling the feels for our fellow humans, and that might mean anger at what's happening. It might be sadness and depression or whatever the feelings are. We have these amplified feelings. We have this chaotic outer world, and then it makes it harder to tease out, well, what do I really need to fulfill myself, to be okay with who I am? And with the sun at 2 degrees or 3 degrees of Cancer, we're just beginning to feel our way into this new emotional territory. And Jupiter also very near to early degrees in Cancer. We're just starting to feel what that instinct is to protect or to nest or to create safety. And it's very strong, right? It's really picking up, but still tender and uncertain, right? We're still not quite into what is the right emotion and do we want to even feel that emotion. With Neptune at 2 degrees of Aries, we have a new vision of self dawning, a new sense perhaps of who we are as spiritual beings. But it's not yet clear. Neptune fogs things up, it makes things unclear, kind of resists boundaries and being able to, see things clearly. But it also brings dreaming and the potential for seeing things from an imagination point of view and seeing spirit in a new way and yourself as a being of spirit in a new way. But again, the path is foggy. We don't know exactly what steps to take yet, but things will get clearer over time. And then the square just makes it a little more tension filled. So again, we have these, internal conflicts perhaps between our own emotional needs and what we feel like others need or want of us. Then we also have these growth cycles that we're in as we're growing as individuals, but also as a collective. So we might have a mismatch going on this week. And that mismatch is between our emotional needs, but our spiritual impulses. And that can make us feel vulnerable. Raise your hand if you're feeling a little vulnerable, not just in the face of the bigger um, life altering things happening perhaps in the outer world, but for in your own personal life. right? How do you feel about that? Your inner child is kind of peeking out, right? What did you do as a child to feel safe and secure when life felt unsafe, right? What did you do? And those are coping mechanisms that might at times have been, put into place for protection, but now have become things that hold you back. So being able to take a look at that. And inspiration also is available, but it might feel diluted by the insecurity of the energy right now. And maybe doubting yourself can come into play here. And there might be the temptation we all have to escape into things that make us feel better in the face of the discomfort of the outer world. And when Neptune is involved, that can be fantasy or distractions, right? Those things that take you away from what it is that you were doing. And, or God help us, martyrdom, right? This the square is from the sun in Cancer to Jupiter, I mean, excuse me, from the sun in Cancer to Neptune in Aries. So we have martyrdom perhaps as we, are trying to move forward, just kind of carrying the torch. I've got to do it all. I got to get it done, right? That keep going. But our sensitivity is really high right now. So, give other people breaks as well, right? Because they are as sensitive as you're feeling. That's why I think really astrology is so beautiful because if I'm understanding what I'm feeling, then I might also be more apt to allow others what they're feeling and have more compassion for what they're feeling and maybe not be so reactive myself to what it is that is being experienced, right? Whether it's an angry frustration kind of thing, or a tender moment of love and caring. So we all are kind of benefiting from this, but at the same time, we're super sensitive. And as well, clarity about what it is we're feeling is really at an all-time low, right? What is it that I'm feeling? So don't try to push yourself or move forward today against, the blocks that you might be feeling. Just let feelings rise without really having to demand immediate resolution or know what it is that it means, right? Just be a little more flowing with it. Trust that your intuition is stirring, even if the messages are still murky. Intuition is very high. Intuition is also instinctive, right? Instinctual awareness or gut instinct and intuition, they're kind of, hand in hand. While Jupiter's in Cancer, that is, and now the sun in Cancer too, that is amplified for all of us. So trust that, learn to trust that. And it might still be murky. You don't know why. What's that thing you say? I don't know how I know what I know. I just know, right? That sometimes we have to just trust that we know. And this is kind of a seed moment for all of us right now as new spiritual emotional integration is occurring, but it's not happened, it's happening. And at that, you need to be gentle with yourself and gentle with others. Right? Everybody's going through this, not just you and just me, right? Everybody. The difference is that you and me, we're listening to astrology, right? We're getting some wisdom, granted and graced to us by the stars. Other people just think that's all a bunch of BS and they don't get it, right? So they're like, oh, what is happening? Well, we could tell them if we, could explain the stars to them. And again, this is happening with the sun in the gate 15 and the earth in the gate 10. So we're bringing in compassion and we're bringing in self love, right? Everything starts with self love. Again, love, gates of love. And if we can't start with love, then how do we go further, right? How do we manage to evolve? So, and then Neptune is in another gate of love, the gate 25. So this is so fascinating, don't you think? Because the sun in the gate of human compassion and the love of our fellow humanity, and Neptune in the gate of spirit, right? Spirit, the love of spirit. So there's this like magnetic pull for love this week and ending on the 25th with after the new moon. But the energy can feel like we're how do we enact love in the face of all these things that are happening in the world? But the invitation for us is to trust that innocence and love and compassion and humanity and all of that is something that we can rely on even when the path isn't clear, right? Love is the only thing that's real. There's a line in the Course in Miracles that it says, only love is real. Only love is real. So all of the other stuff that is happening that seems like it's not love is a call for love, right? So a call for more love. And I know that with some of the things that are going on in the outer world, that's hard to see. It's really hard to see. But we are beings of love. We can do this. All right, let's go on until Tuesday. Tuesday, Sun conjuncts Jupiter in Cancer. You knew that was coming, right? Because right now, today, they're a degree apart. So tomorrow, they're coming together. And this can be about emotional abundance or emotional amplification, whatever that emotion is, right? If it's anger, amplified. If it's love, amplified, right? So emotional abundance or emotional amplification tomorrow, already activating today, was probably activating yesterday, Sunday. And again, we have the sun in Cancer, which is self expression through nurturing and caretaking or caregiving, protecting, love on a very mothering level, right? Mothering, seeking safety, connection, and belonging. And all of that being very close to our hearts right now. Jupiter in Cancer exaggerates and expands all of the themes of Cancer, right? So that emotional sensitivity is amplified, the needs, right? Our emotional needs are amplified, family, caregiving, roots, genealogy, tribalism, nationalism, all of these things are amplified with Jupiter in Cancer. And then a conjunction is the powerful merging of these two energies, right? So the sun, the light of our solar system, and Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, joining forces. And it's a powerful fusion. So we're fusing, this energy of Jupiter in a sign of amplified protection and caring with the sun really shining this bright light on what it is that we're doing to take care of both ourselves and others, right? And this is big heart energy, right? Can you feel your heart expand when you think about your family or, you know, just love in general? And it's waiting for us to use the heart energy to nurture ourselves or others, to protect what we love, right? To protect what's most important to us. And it's also a day for gratitude and emotional generosity and more of this heart-led leadership. I mean, I dare say that if we had heart-led leadership in this country, in Iran, in Israel, in other nations around the world, we wouldn't be in the pickle that we're in, right? We would be living by a completely different set of standards. And I know that sounds a little Pollyanna on my part, but it's what we were here to learn, right? If we're going to go into a golden age, and I believe that's coming and possible, maybe not in my lifetime, but I don't know. Um, then the choices we make have to be based in love, not based in fear, not based in insecurity, not based in greed, right? I would really hope we got past these things, but we're not quite past those things yet. But as a person, as an individual, we can impact all of that by the choices we make. And I'm hoping that your choices and my choices will be made based on love, right? Loving energy. And there is this potential breakthrough energy that exists as well too, especially in family healing, especially in healing, emotions and finding, more emotional integrity and emotional equanimity, right? EQ, emotional quotient. If you were listening to Tam and I in the Jupiter and Cancer webinar, that's what we were really talking about. right? We're gaining in, we got IQ, we got this emotional or this intelligent type thing going, or the intellectual quotient, let's say. But in leaning too much to the mind, we have not really learned much about the emotions. So now we have to bring these into balance, and this is part of what is going on here. Now there is a shadow side. There always is, right? There's the shadow side, the part that we're learning about, and it's emotional indulgence on one hand, codependency, overgiving, oversharing, oversensitivity, right? Giving too much of your heart away. And then that can escalate family dramas or the old wounds that we haven't dealt with coming up to the surface. And what's been hidden gets magnified, right? That's possible here. And maybe feeling like our emotional cups are too full, overflowing emotions. So watch for mood swings and for the feeling of self-protection masked as control, right? If I just control all of this, then I'm protected, right? Things are a little too chaotic for self-control or for control at this point in time. So this is the cosmic heart on your sleeve kind of moment. Tuesday with the Jupiter and the Sun in a conjunction, already happening as far as I'm concerned. It's within orb, if you will. And yet be mindful of what it is you're amplifying. Are you amplifying heart openness or narrow mindedness, right? Which one? And not just that, right? What's being amplified or over amplified, such as the case may be, and what it is it that would be better served by you focusing on. And, be grounded in your own energy. Take a look at how you are feeling emotionally first before you decide to confront someone else. If you haven't taken care of your own backyard, you have no right to take care of somebody else's or to point out that somebody else's is in disarray. Um, Yet there's grace, right? There is grace. And uh, grace, grace. What else can I say, right? Grace, not grief, right? Grace multiplies, grief narrows. So we've got to find that middle way because no matter what, grief is a part of our experience here as well. But we can't let it define us and take us into a spot where where we lose our heart, right? So I guess there's this theme that is about to burst upon us with the new moon conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, right? The new moon on Wednesday uh, being very close to that conjunction and like within a degree. So it's conjunct, right? For all intents and purposes, it's conjunct. And the new moon is always giving us that opportunity for a new beginning. So the theme really becomes maybe about emotional reckoning and sacred realignment, right? How do we realign ourselves to be emotionally responsible, right? Response able. All right. Questions. Da, da, da. No. Happy Monday. Okay, no questions, but if you have questions, you can certainly put them down there. Now I want to show you the chart of the new moon. Um, I got to tell you, it's been a while since I've seen such a hopped up pair of moons, right? We had the full moon, uh, oh, almost 2 weeks ago now, and it was highly activated, but this new moon takes the cake, right? It really takes the cake. So let me add this to the stage here, and I got to amplify this a little because I forgot to take my chart off the scanner. So here is and oh, by the way, my printer wouldn't print in color this morning. Yeah, random stuff. What can I say, right? Technology is also showing us where we're out of control sometimes. So here we have, I know you can't see my pointer, which is such a sad state of affairs, but over here on the left side, you'll see where the new moon is conjunct Jupiter. And by when I say the new moon, I'm really shortening the sun moon conjunction. Right. So the sun, moon, Jupiter, all in conjunction between 3 degrees and 4 degrees of the sign of Cancer. And this is exceptional energy for emotional expansion And yet, on the other hand, it could be exceptionally overwhelming emotion as well. So, again, we are back to how do we manage and take care of our own emotional health? Make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, our own needs, but also that we're not spilling out that emotion onto others. And remember, Jupiter, as the great amplifier and magnifier of the energies, is magnifying the emotional tone of this new moon and the desire for home and comfort and nurturing and safety. It's all being exaggerated or amplified in a very key way. So, the new moon is offering us this opportunity for a new dream or dreaming big about the things that we want in our lives, where we belong and who we belong with, right? Who is our family, our true family. But it can also amplify the mood swings. This is the part that we don't expect, that uh, the typical Cancerian or someone with Cancer prominent in their chart, perhaps like Moon in Cancer, they're very aware of the emotional tides that run right in their being. But not everybody has access to that. So we could be very surprised by the emotional mood swings that we're all going to start feeling here, or that are, ramping up even at this time, right, as we move forward. And it calls for us to really ground our own energy in first. Our own emotional ground must be tilled first. That means you are responsible for your feelings, not something out there nameless like, she did that, so it pissed me off, and yet that may be true, right? Something somebody said or did might very well piss you off. But who's the responsible person? It can't be the other person. It has to be you because you're the one that has the opportunity to react or respond to the energies, right? React or respond. So we have this invitation right now to really police our own emotions, if you will. But also, this is an opportunity to dream big, right? To really look outside of yourself and see what the bigger picture is of, what's true in your life and versus what's not true in your life. There's potential here for a new powerful vision of what it means to be family, or what it means and what it takes to be nourished or be self-nurturing, and how it is that we take on the sacred responsibility of ourselves as part of a collective, right? And the responsibility to the collective, which needs have to be balanced. Now, there are some hard truths colliding here in this new moon, right? I can be Pollyanna all I like, but what you're looking at that I highlighted in yellow or orange and pink is the interlocking yods that I think we talked about last Monday or last Wednesday. I don't remember now when we talked about it. And we all know what yods are, right? Yods are these very powerful um, fingers of God, if you will, that move us, right? That they're the point of the yod, the point, the tip, the apex of the yod is the nozzle through which the energy that does have some stability must be pushed through. So when we look at the first yod, um, we have this energy, if you will, that is sort of collective pressure. That's what I'm going to call it. Like, I'm running out of words, guys, about how to describe some of this very difficult energy that we're experiencing in, the geometry of the planets in the sky. So let's just talk about what an inconjunct is. An inconjunct is the long side of each one of those yods, right? So the long side, it's a 150-degree um, connection that they have. They don't see each other very well, right? So we have Mars at the point of one of the yods in Virgo, and he's inconjunct to the Saturn Neptune conjunction up here in the top, at the very top of the chart. And he's also inconjunct to Pluto in Aquarius. So Mars doesn't get what Saturn and Neptune are trying to accomplish. and he doesn't necessarily get what Pluto is trying to accomplish. He just knows that in Virgo, there has to be a strategy, there has to be growth, there has to be some step by step organization of stuff that we have to do in order to get to where we want to go. And the inconjunct demands adjustment, not resolution, right? There's no easy answers here to the world problems, to our personal problems. There's not easy answers in a yod. And Pluto, which is at one of the base corners here of this first yod that we're looking at, represents the hidden collective forces, the things that are totally out of your control as an individual, right? You cannot control what the collective is going to do, right? Or what the collective energy is bringing us to. Power dynamics, social pressures, things like that are, you're in it, but there's no controlling it. And um, as we look at, that, well, there's another inconjunct if you look from Pluto, which is at the upper right corner. If you follow the pink lines down to where Jupiter, Sun, and Moon are in a conjunction. So we also have this need from, this inconjunct to stop being overprotective, right? Pluto is a transformer, and he is much powerful than the combination of Jupiter, Sun, and Moon, unfortunately, or fortunately, perhaps, right? It's pushing a radical sort of transformation, and it doesn't care how we feel about it, right? There's just no real personalizing the feeling of Pluto demanding transformation of the Sun, Jupiter, and the Moon. It's emotional, but it doesn't care how we feel. It just knows transformation has to happen. Something must shift. Oops, don't bang on the table. It's not as steady. And it's likely an outdated belief that we hold. It's maybe an emotional attachment that we have, or some kind of security structure that is no longer suitable, or is even the tether holding us back from change, from shifting, from moving forward. So Pluto says, got to cut that tie, got to let go of that. Like, I have a whole pile of stuff out here that I'm likely going to need to let go of because it's not going to fit in my new home. Now, that's a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, but if we look at the bigger, wider world, what kinds of security agreements are there that we might have to let go of or adjust to, right? A new world order. We're having to adjust to it. We may not like it right now. We have to trust that there is something bigger at work that is taking us on this journey through to a new world, if you will, or to a golden age, if you will. But we got to do the work to get there. Now, there's also some other subtle friction things going on in this new moon. By the way, this chart that you're looking at is the chart of the new moon, and the new moon occurs at 6:32 a.m. That is Eastern time, East U.S. time, and that means what, 3:32 a.m. for the West Coast. And if you are over in the UTC time zone, that will be at 10:32 a.m. on a Wednesday, June 25th. So it's coming up. And the new moon sits at 4 degrees 8 minutes of the sign of Cancer, with Jupiter here at like 3 degrees 32 minutes, 33 minutes. So very close indeed to a conjunction here. Um, so there's the subtle friction that I was talking about with Venus in Taurus. Here's Venus in Taurus on the upper left quadrant as you look at the chart. And th- it's in a semi-square to the new moon. So, a semi-square is 45 degrees. It's half of the square. So maybe half of the tension of the full-on square. But it's sometimes more subtle in that we don't really know where the tension's coming from, right? It's there, but we don't really know what it is, where it's coming, what's the trigger. But Venus in Taurus seeks sensual um, connection to things, right? The senses getting involved. It's also security oriented somewhat, right? The feet on the ground kind of security in the sign of Taurus, maybe grounded senses, right? But also, the semi square creates this sort of low level background tension that we're not quite sure where it comes from. You may feel like what you want, which would be Venus, isn't lining up at all with what you need, Cancer, right? The Cancer side of this, or what the world demands, the Pluto Saturn part of this. So there might be some financial realities that you have to face. There might be some body based awareness type things that you must face, like who am I in this body? Maybe some relationship discontent or issues that might be popping up just under the surface, though, not clear. Like, I don't know what it is that I'm, really reacting to, but something subtle, something tension filled might quietly stir, right? Come up to the surface. Don't ignore it. This isn't one that you just push to the back burner and say, okay, I don't want to deal with that right now. This is one that you have to check inward. What is it in me that is responding to this person's words or actions or inactions, such as the case may be, right? So don't ignore it, because if you do, it just builds up, right? The pressure, and then it becomes maybe confrontational in an ugly way versus something that you can have a conversation about once you really get clear about what it is that you are responding to. So that's going on in this new moon. And then there's this other inconnected or interconnected yod that is happening. So we have two yods. We don't have just one. One is hard enough. Now interconnect them, and what you have is like a pot stirring, a pot over boiling, right? And, you know, unfortunately, not everybody is capable of dealing with said tensions, right? Sometimes they just gets too much. So I want to give you, this maybe new view of how to work with these yods. So think of yods as portals, right? Doorways, gateways, right? They're invitations, perhaps, for us to consciously connect with the energy of transformation or adjustment, right? Or realignment, recalibration, right? I think I'm thinking of a lot of words that, you know, are telling us that it lies within us to create the change that we want to see. Um, so when you have a double yod, you have double yummy, right? Double yummy opportunities to move through all of this. And with the second yod pointing at Pluto and the first yod pointing at Mars, which are co rulers of the sign of Scorpio, the sign that we can think of as the transforming sign, we- there's so much I could say about this, right? There's this work that we have to do. It's inner work. What inner work must you complete or at least align with in order to be able to push forward, to move forward? This is the new moon, guys, right? So this is new opportunities for you to become responsible, right, in this. Mars in the mix at the nozzle in Virgo says get to work, but do it with integrity. Whatever it is you're going to work on, do it with integrity. Now, in the other yod, Mars forms the base, right, with the sun, moon, and Jupiter. So we're being grounded in care and nurturing and the ability to be organized or to take practical steps forward. But again, that base is going to be pointing at Pluto. And there's a pressure point, right? The pressure point. So Pluto demands that we surrender control because in order for true power to emerge, and this is what Pluto is after, true power, the true power lies in the care and nurturing of humanity, right? Humanity, not AI, right? Not, leaders who want to take us to war and lead us to the brink of annihilation, but to a power that comes from within each one of us. The power is really truly in love, right? Energy. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is actually less about love and more about humanity in a more objective sort of way. So I don't want to characterize Aquarius as not loving, because that's not what I mean. But it has a different set of expectations, perhaps, right? It is not um, personalizing any of it. It's saying, on a bigger level, a more collective level, we must embrace change. And the biggest change that we must embrace is becoming more loving toward one another, right? Toward the world. No matter who they are, what God they are praying to, or what sexuality is they are, or what their culture is. Love is blind, right? Love doesn't see that. Love is more inclusive than that, more tolerant than that. So, one of the big core changes that we have to make is within us as we see the world through, black and white lenses at times. We need to see them in multicolor beauty, right? That's humanitarian. That's humanity. That is Pluto in Aquarius. But in order to get there, we got to see the uglies first. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing almost the worst of humanity's offerings, right? The worst of what humanity can do to one another. And I think because it has to be so exaggerated in order for us to see what's wrong, right? Where we're out of sync, where we're not living, in the Pluto in Aquarian energy. So when we get to this new moon, while I'm hoping that we can find a path to peace, it's not likely yet. I wish I was wrong. I might be wrong, but I feel like there's still some real explosive stuff to happen before we can really say, we're done with that, right? You and me, we may be done with that. And it's going to be incumbent on us to keep putting out love energy, right? And to be peaceful and to be inclusive and tolerant and loving as much as we can to everyone around us, to every, one within our sphere. But the outer world is not quite there yet. So we may see some more of this trauma happening. So, what do we do? Well, I think the biggest thing that we can do is be loving to ourselves first and to the people that are in our lives. There's compassion here. There is this flowering, if you will, of compassion that, when our hearts break open, right? When we open ourselves, we find love. And then that requires us to live within integrity and to release the illusions that we have of, this world, and take courageous action that's rooted in truth, in faith, in ourselves, but also, in love. And I wanted to bring up, and I hate to do this almost as the closing, but what can I say? There it is, right? Um, I wanted to bring up what the Sabian symbol is during this period of time for the new moon. And I love the Sabian symbols because they're degree specific, and it really takes us to sort of the energy of that degree and what's available for us to work with at that time. But as you know, the Sabian symbols are sometimes they're difficult language to understand, but I found this one quite direct and quite in my face. And here's the Sabian symbol. It is at a railroad crossing, an automobile is wrecked by a train. So at a railroad crossing, an automobile is wrecked by a train. And this really symbolizes this collision in the new moon between personal will, right? And the impersonal, unstoppable forces of the cosmos, right? So, no matter how much I will that our leaders make better decisions, there's this unstoppable force of evolutionary pressure that is not in my hands, right? What we intend to try to control really comes back and slaps us and says, yeah, there cannot be stopped, right? There are things that cannot be stopped. we cannot stop the tide of change that is occurring in this world. And even if we don't like what's happening superficially at the moment, or, what we see, it has a bigger meaning. And I try to remember that every time I hear about something to me that seems anti-human, right? Or anti-humanitarian. And the train in this really represents systems and destiny and collective movements, or this karmic energy that we're not in control of. And the car represents our free will, our ego, our personal trajectory in all of this. And in this image, it's not yielding. The train is going to beat the car every time, right? If the car is on the tracks, that is. So with two yods, Pluto at the apex of one at this new moon, Mars at the apex of another, and the square of Saturn, or the square to Saturn and Neptune by the sun and moon, it becomes a direct reflection of this sky's tension, right? Of the tension of all of these planets and the things that are so beyond our control, right? We just have to be able to live through them and have as much heart and as much love as we can through what is happening. But it also is the emotional desire to stay in your lane, stay, handle what you can handle, right? Stay in your business, right? Byron Katie said, "There's my business, there's your business, and then there's God's business." And this is, the train kind of, I think, is representative of God's business, if you will, and the forces. And I don't mean to characterize God as, an unstoppable force, but let's just call it the spirit of evolutionary energy, i.e., God, is this unstoppable force, right? And our part in all of this is the choices that we make, how we respond to what is happening in the world. Um, so the emotional desire, to stay in your own lane, to do things the comfortable way, is met by the unavoidable transformation that Pluto brings, and then the soul level mandates that Saturn in conjunction to Neptune is bringing to us, right? There's this new energy. And the message says, if you don't change voluntarily, the universe may force a course correction. And it's not, just you, it's this collective, right? If we don't change, then if we don't do it voluntarily, then it's going to be brought to our front door. We're at the brink of something, right? And we're at the brink of a major transformation. But is it going to be one that turns us toward love? Is it going to be one that changes us irrevocably to something more negative and disastrous? I believe we're headed toward love, even if it doesn't look like that right now on the surface. I think that's where we're headed, right? We're headed toward that. We're going to see that the commonalities between all of us are what bind us, right? The things that we all want together, like peace, like joy, like the belonging of family, the nurturing capacity. Those are things that we all, as people, no matter where we live, those are the things we want. And they're very powerful. They bind us in a way that war and bloodshed and intolerance and hate can't, right? Only love is real. Only love is real. Everything else is not real. Everything that's not love is not real. It feels real, but it's not real. So, in closing today, just ask yourself, because I don't know where my cards are, guys. It's somewhere in here. Might be outside. So I can't draw a card today. But I can ask you questions, or questions for you to ask yourself. Where are you barreling forward without really checking the larger forces at play in your life? In other words, where are you trying to go at cross purposes to where, destiny is pushing you? What inner track are you crossing without full awareness of the unstoppable nature of evolution at play in your life, the consequences perhaps of those actions? So, this new moon really warns us to not first of all, we're incapable of overriding our soul's evolution, the soul of the planet, the soul, your own soul. You're always going to be guided in the right direction. But it's time for us to pause, to assess, and to surrender to what's greater than your ego's plan, right? And I say that the ego of the planet, but also our personal egos. We could do this. We got this. But it's going to take each of us as individuals to come together for a purpose, and that purpose being restoring love and peace and joy and the the life that we really all want to live. All right. Thank you all for joining me this morning. I will be on air Wednesday with Tam as we discuss what's happening in July. And then I will be back again on Friday and hopefully more organized with my cards and with the end of June's information. Much love to all of you. Bye for now.